Hey everybody, welcome back to Phil's Next Kick. Today I'm going to do something, I say it's a little bit different, but everything's a little bit different on my channel. Today I'm going to make some hard apple cider from this 1 gallon of apple juice. So stay tuned and we'll get it done. Okay, to make hard apple cider, all you really need is apple juice, some extra sugar to give the yeast a little something else to make a little more alcohol, and yeast. Got it right here. I'm going with the wine yeast this time. The first time I ever did anything like this, I just used bread yeast, and it turned out all right, but we have a homebrew store in town now, so I'm gonna use wine yeast because I can get it. And I'm only gonna use half of this packet. This is good for 5 gallons of wine or whatever we wanna use it on. But I'm only gonna do 1 gallon. And then I've got another project that I'm gonna do, or another experiment I'm gonna do, use the rest of this yeast for. So the first thing I do is I've got a bucket of sanitizer right here. I use Star San, same stuff I use for the beer brewing, but I've already sanitized a funnel and a measuring cup, and I've dried those because I'm going to use those with the sugar. So I washed and sanitized and dried those. I don't want the stuff I'm going to use with the sugar to be too wet because then the sugar will stick to it and you just have a mess. So I've got in here my stoppers and my airlocks and my cup that I'm going to use to rehydrate my yeast in my sanitizer right here. It's just water with Star San. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my rehydration cup right here. So I'm going to have to pour off some of this juice here. And normally you would rehydrate your yeast in water, but I'm just going to use a little bit of the juice because you see this is already all the way full, and we're going to want some headroom in there so that it doesn't explode on us or overflow. So plastic cup here. I'm just going to dip it in the sanitizer too real quick, just in case at the end if I need to top off with any extra juice. I've got this sanitized cup that will have juice in it, so I can pour this back in there if I need to. So we're going to take a little bit of our juice, pour it into this cup to rehydrate our yeast. And then we're going to take some more juice until a little bit more. Probably just about a full cup. There we go. Give us some headroom in there. Okay. Next, try to get about half of this yeast out of this packet. And into the juice there. Okay, and then we're going to save the rest of this for the other project we're doing. So I'm just going to set that to the side. And then we have, you can smell it in there. I'm just going to kind of stir that up a little bit, shake it up. Get the yeast all good and mixed in with that juice. Okay, an important note about the juice. You want to make sure that it has no preservatives in it. When you look at your ingredients on your juice, check it and make sure it's just apples, water, maybe some ascorbic acid, which is just vitamin C. But you don't want any sorbates or weird stuff like that. No preservatives. So now we've got the yeast mixed in. Just going to set that aside until we're ready for it. And then we're going to grab our sugar, measure out 1.5 cups. So get it on the cup side. If I were doing less than a full gallon, then I wouldn't use quite as much sugar. Because the last one I did, I think it was a 60, it was less than a gallon when I did it with some grape juice. Tried to make a cheap, what they call a redneck wine. That's pretty close, just a little bit more. And I used a cup of sugar, and I think it was maybe a liter, which is a little bit less than a gallon. There we go, right at a half a cup. So then I have my funnel, drop that in the top. Makes it a little bit easier just to get this in there. Pour in the sugar. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure this is good and dry. Otherwise, you get a sticky mess when you're pouring the sugar in here. All right, get that all in. This cap was already sanitized before I opened it, but I'm going to use this to shake it up instead of putting my airlock in or my stopper in just yet. I'm just going to sanitize the cap, put it back on, good and tight. You get all that sugar in the bottom, you just got to get that mixed in real good. A little bit of shaking, and this does a couple things other than mixing in the sugar. It also helps to get some oxygen in there, which is good for the yeast when it first starts out. After it starts to ferment, you don't want any oxygen to get in, which is why you have an airlock. One of the reasons you have an airlock. So get that all good and mixed up. Looks pretty good. All that fuzz on the top, all that foam up there, it's telling you that it's got a lot of good oxygen in it. There we go. Okay, either before or after you get your yeast in there, you can take a hydrometer reading. And what this is a weighted glass tube with measurements on it. And it basically tells you how much sugar you're starting off with in your brew, in your cider, your beer, whatever you're using it for. Then you take your first reading and your last reading, and you can use those to determine how much alcohol is going to be in whatever it is you're brewing. So I've just sanitized my hydrometer. I could just drop it straight in there. I'm not entirely sure if I'd be able to get it back out because the opening isn't that big. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get my hydrometer tube. Nope, I'm not gonna, well. Okay, so I made a mistake there. I unplugged my microphone and forgot to plug it back in. So the rest of the video you get to listen to this not so great voiceover because my microphone also is not working right. Anyway, I decided to use the hydrometer tube, or the tube that the hydrometer came in. So I washed it out good and I sanitized it. And then I went on to talk about the hydrometer a little bit more. I think I've already touched on the fact that it's a triple scale hydrometer, which means it just has 3 different markings on it. But we're going to use the gravity marking, which looks like 1.0 something or another, to take the initial gravity reading, which is the measuring how much sugar is in your liquid. And then we'll take a gravity reading at the end, and we'll use the formula that's on the screen now to determine how much alcohol is in our cider. So with that said, now we're going to just skip ahead a little bit to the part where we actually take the reading. So I did mention here that you can take the reading either before or after adding the yeast. And if we were adding more liquid with our yeast than we have here, then I would probably add the yeast first and then take the reading. But this small amount of liquid is, I don't think, going to make that much difference. So we pour off a sample. I'm using the funnel just to make this easier because this tube is quite small. We pour off a sample into the tube. And then, and you'll see here I actually put a little too much in there because as I drop the hydrometer down in the tube, you'll see that liquid getting really close to the top, and I don't want it to overflow.
So I'm just going to pour a little bit back in the bottle. And we can take our reading. And I didn't get an up-close shot of the reading, but another thing you'll do is kind of swirl it around or spin it, just to kind of get some of the bubbles around it to dissipate a little bit so you can read it easier. But this reading was actually a 1090. So that's our starting gravity for this cider. And then, like I said earlier, we'll take a reading at the end and use the formula and to determine how much we're going to have in there. I'm gonna hope, or I'm kind of shooting for maybe a 12% alcohol on this one, maybe a little less. The yeast that I'm using will go up to 14%, but I want this to be a little sweet, so maybe a 10 to 12%. That should leave some sugar in there. So now that we've got our measurement, we're just going to add our yeast. This is actually called pitching the yeast, but you just pour it in. And it's a good thing we left as much headroom as we did, because adding the sugar and then adding that little bit of yeast, you can tell the headroom in the bottle has decreased quite a bit. So we sanitize the top again, put it back on, and give it one more good shake just to mix in the yeast. And then this is where I run into another little bit of a problem, because as I get ready to put the bung in, I realized that the bung that I thought was going to fit was too big. So I had a backup, but it's too small. So neither one of the bungs that I got for this would work. So then I just go ahead and tell you guys about the airlock in the bung. And you can see there's a little bit of the water, the sanitizer water in there. That's going to keep the air from getting back in. So it'll go up and through the water as it comes out of the jug, but nothing can get back into the cider. So that's what we want, is we want to let the CO2 out, but keep the bad stuff from getting back in. So what I end up deciding to do, at least for the first day, because I will tell you I did get a bung that fits, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I re-sanitize the cap, and then I just loosely put the cap on the bottle so that the CO2 can get out, because we don't want it to explode. So I get it on there just barely tight and then back off just a little bit. And this could potentially allow some things to get in there, but when you have a positive pressure the first day or so of fermentation, the bottle's going to be so firm with the CO2 getting out that nothing's really going to have a chance to get in. So it should be safe until I can get it replaced. And like I said, I did get it replaced. And there it is. And you can see it's just bubbling along. This is the day after, bubbling along just nicely, just like it should be. So this should take about 2 to 3 weeks for this to fully ferment. And then we'll probably bottle it, not put it in a secondary fermenter or something. I'll decide then. But once that time comes, we'll see you guys back with another video.